You're listening to Face of a Feminist with Laura Diaz and Marissa Clark.
Thanks for tuning in with us. I'm Laura Diaz.
And I'm Marissa Clark.
So do you have the show sheet?
No.
That we created?
Nope, because it is down in my car. And Laura, I don't know how many times we need to start this. I feel like every time we open this podcast, it's talking about how I refuse to get whatever you need out of my car. So maybe in the future, just text me.
I just don't understand why you can't have the
show. Oh, really?
The one thing we need is the show sheet.
Really? Because did you check out those 3 flights of stairs coming up here? Because I would think that you would understand.
This is becoming an issue with you. Not only did we talk about your Alexa,
yeah,
but first of all, I thought you had like a bunch of show sheets. They're all in the car?
They're all in my car.
Okay, so they're in your car, and that means you're definitely not getting them.
Nope.
And we've already talked about your Alexa issue, your Roomba issue. What other issue? What, I feel like maybe we just need, with you?
We need to record somewhere else because clearly the situation's not happening in my apartment, in my tiny house.
Why? And I love you.
Yeah.
And this isn't supposed to be an insult.
Okay.
But you're so lazy.
I know. Like, and I actually don't take that personally at all. And in fact,
would.
I'm right. Well, because I don't think I'm lazy where it matters. Like I'm not lazy in my, career or my, my personal life. I am kind of lazy, aren't I? Just not really that ambitious to go find myself a husband or.
Have you always been lazy or is this a new thing?
No, this is a new development. This is a new, I think you just get so torn down by life and you just start realizing that not a lot matters. And maybe that's where this is all coming from. Yeah. It is a new development.
I don't know that I would be lazy if I were single and childless because I never really was the lazy type. But I feel like you make me want to be lazy. Like you're rubbing off on me.
It's a great life, Laura.
It's like a contagious type thing.
It's like, everyone makes fun of like the bachelor lifestyle. I think that's what I have. Like before you came over, I was like, I need you to give me 10 minutes so that I can run home and put my dirty dishes away. Because if you came over and saw what the state of my apartment, like, don't open my bedroom door because that's where I just threw everything in because I've got laundry in there. I've got a salad bowl from lunch yesterday.
Marissa.
But it's just,
a salad bowl.
Yeah,
get it together.
And
what is the laziest thing you've ever done? Because I know the laziest thing I've ever done, and that was I drove to get the mail.
Oh, well, that's, of course.
But it was like, a community mailbox.
Right.
So it wasn't in my driveway.
Yeah.
That's the laziest thing I've ever done.
That's it.
Absolutely hands down. It's like burned in my mind because I remember looking at my husband and saying, this is a new low for me. Okay. I'm out.
All right.
What's the laziest? Why are you laughing? What is the laziest thing you've ever done?
I don't know about ever, right? Because that's a very long list of things. If we're talking about my entire life, but I'm so hesitant to tell you this because I feel like we can be very open with each other, but this is really embarrassing. So, do you remember?
Oh God, I'm like dying to hear.
It's the current laziest thing I've been doing.
Oh,
but it's just now. So do you remember yesterday how we were sitting here?
She can't even get it together, y'all. You're dying. What is it?
Do you remember how we were sitting here after we were recording yesterday and we heard that noise? It was like a crinkling noise and you're like looking around.
Yeah, and I kept looking and you never addressed it. And I was like, does she have a mouse in her closet?
No, it is a trash bag that I shoved in my laundry closet behind that door. And because I was in such a hurry for you to come over, I just took it off of the floor and shoved it in the laundry closet and shoved the door shut. And it was sliding down off of my dryer. And that's what the noise was. was, but I didn't want to tell you that's what it was.
It was a trash bag?
A bag full of trash because the dumpster is 3 floors downstairs and I have to drive to throw away my trash. So because I've been sick the past couple of days, I haven't really felt like doing it. And I knew you were coming over and I didn't want a bag of trash out where you could see it. So it's still currently in that closet.
So you have a bag of trash that is several days old, mind you.
Yeah, probably
in
2 days old.
Your closet behind me right now, shoved up in there to the point where it was falling down yesterday. I thought you had a hamster in there because it was like scraping at the wall, begging to get out.
I couldn't tell
just like
you.
apple cores and like paper towels and like Q-tips just right here.
It was just not my proudest moment.
So you're now at the point where you're shoving trash into crevices in your place. I need you to get it together.
Laura, you have to I've got my laptop, I've got my purse, I've got a water bottle, and then I have to grab a bag of trash and carry it down 3 flights of stairs, put it on top of my car, drive to the dumpster, get out of my car, put the trash bag in the dumpster, and then start on about my day. It's just a lot, especially
Marissa,
when you're not feeling well.
I've also resided in an apartment in my life. So yeah, I'm aware of the trash dumpster routine, and somehow I've made it to 35 without dying over the trash drop off.
It's just a lot, Laura.
Oh my God. I'll give you the last couple of days because you've been sick. And by the way, thank you. I am now sick.
You're very welcome.
But wow.
I know. Again, it's not my proudest moment. I think that if I had a roommate, for instance, I would not be a slob. Like, I've always been very respectful of roommates that I've lived with, but there's just something about living by yourself where you just kind of stop giving a damn.
No, I can see that. I mean, I lived by myself when I lived in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. It's a nice place to be.
It's great.
It's a great little, condition to be in.
Right.
Because you can do whatever you want.
And you've got 4 times the amount of trash because you've got 4 times the amount of people living in your residence.
I know. All right. So I'm going to stop asking you about your laziness because I'm appalled.
Well, if you'd like to start recording somewhere else, I'm more than happy to because
we tried my house.
This has become a real burden. I'm not going to lie.
We tried my house and my dog, who's like 49 million years old. No, I think she's actually 100. Right. She's 100 people years. Mm-hmm. And she has like 2-inch long nails and she just like walks around the tick, 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 tick. Everywhere she goes. You could hear it on the podcast.
Coraline is such a special species.
She's got one eye.
Animal.
Oh my gosh. You don't even want to know what they did to her.
No, I know what they did to her. I don't know if you want to tell people.
I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay.
Even though you've heard it, I want people to know.
Well, it's really tragic.
So when I used to be a news anchor for Channel 6, the CBS affiliate here, we would do like a segment. I think I was, back then I was the weekend news anchor. And so on the weekends, they do a lot of fluff. One of the segments was pet adoption of the week or whatever. Yeah. And like the big pet adoption place here would come in with their featured animal. And this week it was this dog I now have. And she was telling me like on the air what these people did to her. So there was a fire in Georgia, a pet shelter fire. Yeah. The shelter caught fire and only a certain number of dogs got out. Okay. The rest perished. How awful is that?
I can't.
Okay. It's like the worst story. And then the ones that survived, this pet rescue place here, Pet Rescue by Judy, took in all of the ones who survived and they shipped them down to Florida and she took them into her shelter. So she was bringing one of them. She's like, look, this is one of the dogs that survived the pet shelter fire. But you wouldn't believe what this dog had gone through before the fire. Like there was a whole torturous, like, so she must have been with some evil people that they used her as target practice.
Oh my God, I can't.
This is
Every
what
time I hear this,
this is what Pet Rescue by Judy, the owner of the place, was telling me, that they had to deduce because of like the medical examination on her body. She has 18 BB pellets in her body, inside her body, and that's not counting the ones they surgically removed. There were 18 still left that they couldn't get out, or it wasn't worth it.
Right.
You know, they weren't going to hit any major arteries or whatever. So yeah, she said the only thing we can deduce is that they used her as target practice for their BB guns. And she had one eye missing because they shot it out. Oh my God. And when they got her, it was a mess. They had to like remove it. It was just an infected mess. They didn't want her to have any more puppies, so they spayed her themselves with a knife. Is that awful?
No, I mean, there's just like a special place in hell for people
for
like
those
that.
people.
Yeah.
And here's the worst part. They were unsuccessful at it.
In spaying her?
In spaying
I didn't know
her.
that.
So she had such a bad infection when they found her that she was like urinating blood.
Oh my.
And it's just like when I tell this story, everyone's like, I can't hear anymore. And I don't know why I tell everyone. I just feel like people need to know like how important it is to adopt,
of course,
instead of buying from a puppy store, which I'm a huge advocate of, you know, for this exact reason. Like, you wouldn't even know if you went to the shelter what this dog had been through. And when I tell people what the dog had been through, their hearts are breaking. Give her to me.
Of course.
But I'm like, if you went to the shelter and you saw a one-eyed black dog, which by the way, there's something called black dog syndrome. Did you know that?
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
Judy told me, she's like, all these black dogs don't get adopted just because they're black. And it's the same thing like black cat syndrome. Like, and so there's all these, she's a black dog with one eye, and you would never have known what she's been through. So you just have to adopt. But anyway.
So she goes from being shot at. And then she's in a fire.
So she somehow gets away, and they said she had 2 litters of puppies. They could tell she had 2 litters already before they like tried to. And they filed down her teeth.
Of course,
so that she couldn't bite them.
Oh my.
Oh yeah, and she had heartworm so bad she could barely breathe. So when heartworm gets really advanced, you have really labored breathing, so she could barely breathe. So here she comes to this shelter. They find her on the side of the road in Georgia, take her to a shelter where she almost makes it until a fire busts out. Then she finds her way to Orlando and into my life, and she is the most special dog that you could ever imagine. She's not skittish. She's never bitten anyone. I have 2 babies at home that she's so good with. I'm like, you know what? That dog is like an angel from heaven.
No, I mean, literally a miracle. You hear about like, cats have 9 lives. Like, no, Coraline has 9+ lives, because that's just, oh my gosh.
Coraline is an amazing animal. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So we got her like this heartworm. So it was basically like chemo for dogs to get that heartworm away. It was $2,000. It was so hard to do that, because you're like, okay, I just got this dog, that's so much money, but you just your heart, you know, you're connected to certain animals.
Listen, if a dog has already survived that much, like don't count him out just yet. Like, she's clearly got a will to live.
Oh my gosh, I remember like she was leaving the news studio that day, and I was like, you don't have to take her back. I'm just gonna go ahead and pick her up from here.
Where
just
do I
leave
sign?
her. That was it. That was the end of it for me.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
So so to get a little bit more lighthearted.
Sorry, I don't even
Why
know.
do we go on all these morbid?
I apologize.
Really
I know people are probably really upset right now hearing that story. I always have to tell people, adopt, don't shop.
Well, and I think it makes them appreciate their own animals that are in their lives too. Anyway, so we were in the bathroom today, and you came up to me and you were like, I have an idea for the podcast. And I was like, okay.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned something about having a crush while you were married.
Yes.
And even though I had a lot of questions to ask about that, a lot of follow-ups.
You saved it.
I did save it. And so now I would like for you to explain what in the world
so I international soccer star Ashlyn Harris. I think I'm in love with her, and I want to marry her.
Okay.
And I'm very concerned about it because I'm a married straight woman, and she is a woman. Mm-hmm. She's also not my husband. Mm-hmm. So there's that issue. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed her recently for a video to empower women and girls. She gave me this wonderful interview about, you know, what it takes to be great, she says. And it was such a great interview. And as I'm editing it, spending hours upon hour just watching her and listening to her inspiring quotes. And I was like, I think I think I'm in love with her. Marissa, I think I'm madly in love with Ashlyn Harris from the Orlando Pride.
If anyone knows Ashlyn Harris, please send them this podcast, because this is making me very uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable with
Yeah.
it. Like, I'm glad that the editing is over and done with, so I don't have to keep staring into her beautiful eyes. But is that inappropriate to have a crush of that nature while married?
Okay, so here's what, whenever you were talking to me in the bathroom, I'm running through the list of people in my head who I think you might be referring to. And to me, all of them were like unattainable celebrities, right? And we've always talked about particularly how in our job, it's kind of even weird to have a real, like a celebrity crush, because we might encounter them, you know, like in our job, we interview, you know, musicians or people in movies or doing promotions and stuff like that. I didn't think it was actually someone who was local.
Yeah, no, I mean, she might be unattainable to others. But to me, I have somewhat of access to her because I am the Orlando Pride ambassador.
Not anymore. Not after she hears this.
Well, it's just that I love her. And I don't like you're laughing, but I don't think you understand that I'm afraid we might be soulmates and somehow it's all the stars did not align correctly. Like, I love my husband.
Right, of course.
Love him.
Love him.
But this woman, Marissa, I mean,
Could it
if you look on the picture, okay, go to at Face of a Feminist on Instagram. That's where we are. I posted a photo with me and her. We just look good together.
Well, I think you look like her, and I think you're trying to make yourself look like her subconsciously. So are we just going to talk about that? Because
Okay, fine. I'll tell you what I did yesterday.
Okay.
I went to the salon, and my sister's my hairstylist, and I told her to give me the Ashlyn cut.
Yeah.
And she did. And here we are. I have buzzed sides of my head. It's almost like a pink kind of look, like the rock star pink. But I wanted a little more Ashlyn thrown in there.
She has enough to file a restraining order, I'm pretty sure. I'm actually pretty sure, Ashlyn, if you were to walk down to wherever you file a restraining order, is Exhibit A is she stares at your photo regularly. Exhibit B is she's now talking about getting your exact same haircut.
Here's the issue, though. I have several issues. One being that she part of her interview was like talking about how she will not be objectified because
Too late. Sorry, girl.
we were talking about being a badass female athlete. What's that like? And she was like giving me all these examples of, you know, people treating her like in a very sexist manner because she's this beautiful, but also happens to be an amazing athlete. And so she's gotten some people to say, oh, that's why your games are so sold out, or that's why you're so successful, is because you're good looking. And she just went on this whole thing about, I am not an object to be desired. I am not, you know, I'm a person.
Yeah.
And the whole time she was talking, I couldn't stop thinking about how beautiful she was. I couldn't stop staring into her dreamy face and thinking, oh, I wonder what it's like to kiss you.
And it just makes it even. I can't, Laura.
I'm sorry, Marissa. I know this is like a little looser of a broadcast because we're in your kitchen, but this is how I feel. And like Mike was just like, hey, I don't mind.
Well, of course not. I mean, I've always talked about you, me, and Mike being sister wives, but Ashlyn's a way better option than I am. She's a much better catch.
Well, and she's like rich. I mean, she's the full package.
I was gonna say what I was starting to say is not only is she beautiful, but it's even more attractive because she's so talented. And like people who have passions and goals and ambitions and are really successful on things are also incredibly attractive to me.
Right.
So
I mean, she's a World Cup champion.
I get it, Laura.
She's the greatest in her field.
You're gonna have to do something about these feelings because clearly you can't act on them because you're never gonna be allowed near even the Orlando City Stadium after this.
Won't I?
No.
Well, the good news is here's the biggest piece of takeaway. The interview's over. The editing is over. So I don't have to stare at her for hours on end. I think hopefully out of sight, out of mind will happen. And I can get back to my happy life with
Your husband. Beautiful children and everything.
My husband's great. Maybe I should interview my husband and then stare at him for hours while editing.
Yeah, he's a feminist. I mean, why not? It's actually a good idea.
Anywho, well, this is awkward.
Do you want to do like a self-promotion of where people can go see this video?
Oh, yeah. Well, Face of a Feminist on Facebook, and that's it. That's the only place you can see the video.
She's so starstruck and so in love right now.
Faceofafeminist.com.
Barely get her speech together.
So, yeah, I have an inappropriate crush. My question is, aren't you allowed to have a little crush here and there while you're married? I mean, I still have a pulse.
Well, I'm actually curious to hear what, in all seriousness, I'm actually curious to hear what other people have to say. Like, do you have a real person crush, and is it okay if you just don't act on it? Or are you only allowed to have celebrity crushes? Or do you speak like openly to your mate about other people who you find attractive?
Okay, so Mike, for example, like Mike says, Nicki Minaj is his crush.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Couldn't be more different than me.
Mike?
At least Ashlyn Harris is like a blonde, like my husband. Maybe a different sex, but
Mike said Nicki Minaj.
My little white husband from Kentucky.
Country bumpkin.
Country bumpkin.
I would think like Carrie Underwood, right? Or like she's...
Wow. Nicki Minaj is a celebrity crush.
We're going to have to talk about it.
I know. It's crazy.
That's a little
Everyone
weird.
jokes with him and says he couldn't handle it.
No, of course not.
If he had the opportunity, I would encourage him to try as a challenge.
Spit him, chew him up, spit him out. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. I don't know. I don't get that, but whatever. I'm sure he has more than that, but
so speaking of self-promotion, we've been trying to get people to leave us iTunes review, shamelessly trying to get people to do that. And kind of the goal in that is we really would like to hear some feedback too of what you guys think. And I was going to bring this one up to you. In fact, I wrote it down. There was a dad who left us a review on iTunes that he asked a really interesting question that I was going to bring up to you, which was something along the lines of, he's a single father and he's got 3 daughters, I believe that he said. And he said, I wish that you guys would talk more about how I, as a man, can empower young women and girls. And I was like, that's a really interesting subject that I'll bring up to Laura.
Do you feel empowered?
Yeah.
As a woman, a young woman.
Mm-hmm.
You're what, 26?
Yeah.
My perfect response to him is just be there.
Yeah.
Just show up.
Yeah.
Just be in your daughter's life every day. She can count on you. You're a male figure she can count on who isn't abandoning her, isn't cheating on the mom or maybe a dad, whoever, isn't, lying, isn't financially draining the family. That's it, man. And these dads like today are always trying to find out, how do I, no. Just be there.
Literally.
That's all we need in society right now is for fathers to just be in their child's life. Now, forget daughters.
Right.
Either child.
Of course.
I mean, Marissa, I read just the other day more than, it was 20. That's what it was. 20 million. More than 20 million children have no father in the home.
So what's the proportion of that?
That is they said 1 in 3. I was just reading an article the other day. 1 in 3 kids in America, 1 in 3 live in a home without a father present.
That is so great. And I pointed this out to someone the other day I was watching TV with, and they're actually doing commercials nowadays about like fathers being involved in their children's life and like a dad just simply being present. And I know I can speak for myself. Clearly I've got a lot of issues, but I don't think any of them are daddy issues per se. And I can say that simply my father being there for me and showing up to dance recitals or taking an interest in what I was doing in school. I mean, I can say that my household had a very low level of dysfunction. And I think that is so important.
So as you were just talking, I was Googling because I wanted to find the article that I just read. So it is, they're calling it the father absence crisis in America.
A crisis?
They're calling it a crisis. So I actually, when you were talking about the commercials, I've seen billboards. I forget what it's called. It's a campaign. It's like father something, like show up. I don't know what it is. They're trying to beg men, begging them to get back into their children's lives or never leave it in the first place, because you don't have to work out with your spouse.
Right.
That doesn't have to work out.
Yeah.
I come from a divorced home, and my dad was 7 when they got I was 7 when they got divorced, and he was just gone.
Yeah.
And it was just like, man, you don't have to work out with my mom, but could you not check out of my life?
So how do you think that affected you kind of like in the long term of your dad just not being there?
In every way, shape,
Really?
and form, Marissa. I'm telling you, it's like, I don't know how it is for a man not to grow up with a father figure. I would imagine it's pretty important, you know? But for a woman, for me, it was so huge. I had issues with men. I still have issues with my husband to this day at 35. I was convinced that all men just abandon me, you know, in particular. So you're just always waiting for whoever you trust and fall in love with to just leave.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such an unhealthy place to be. And, you know, I'm looking at this article that I just pulled up. It says here, the father absence crisis in America means that you're at a 4 times greater risk of poverty living without a father in the home.
No kidding.
Yes. It says you're more likely to have behavioral problems. You're more likely to go to prison, more likely to commit a gun crime. You're 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teenager.
Yeah. And
7 times more likely.
Yeah. Because you're just constantly, I feel like I've never experienced this, but from people and talking to you, I hear that you're just constantly craving that attention that you're not getting, the male attention that you're not
you're
getting
looking for a father figure
Yeah.
in sexual partners or in romantic relationships. And that is so bad. I mean, you know, I dated older men my whole life, and that was 100% the reason why. I was always looking for that father figure in the most sick, twisted way. I mean, when you think about it, how gross.
Well, I mean, it's all subconscious. Like, it's not front of mind. You're not like, I need to replace my father, so I'm going to go date this 45-year-old man who has 3 DUIs.
No,
That's in another podcast.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Listen to the previous podcast. You know what it is? It just occurred to me. It's not that you're like looking for the father figure in this guy. You're looking for someone who's a male to love you.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Because for my whole life, pretty much until just now, I've been saying like, oh, I was looking for a daddy and other guys. No, that's not it. You want a man to love you. That's what you want, because you didn't get that growing up, and it's just the saddest thing in the whole world.
So I think that's a really good piece of advice, because I'm sure maybe what that dad was expecting is for us to have some really big, profound, specific, you know, answer, but the real answer is just be there for them.
Sons and daughters, guys. Son or daughter, just show up in their life. You know, I mean, if it's a daughter, just be a good dad. I mean, do you know that there's this book, Freakonomics, and you probably heard of it. There's like this whole study about, it's called The Good Enough Mom. And they found that, they basically figured out what it takes to be a quote, good enough mom. And I think it's something ridiculous, like 12 minutes a day with your kid. Like, they like basically figure out, because you had all these moms who have to work 10-hour days, and you know, their kids are in daycare, and all these moms are guilt crazy because I'm not a good mom. Like, what is a good mom? And they like basically found out the rates for crimes and things later in life, and found out that if you could just spend like 12 minutes a day with your kids, makes you a quote, good enough parent to not screw them up for life. I'm like, so if you could just have a father around every day.
I remember some of the best memories, and this seems like going above and beyond, but I remember some of my best memories growing up with my dad was when he would take me to ice skating lessons. I loved that time with him, and he would come, he would drop me off after he got off work, and when he picked me up, we would get ices. And it was like, it's still something so simple that to this day I'm like, it's such a positive memory of just having him around. And I'm sure, you know, when you're 6 years old, there's only so many tricks you can do on an ice skating rink. It's not like the most fascinating thing for him.
I didn't know you took ice skating lessons.
Yeah, I thought I told you that. Not very long. It was right before, I think it was when I was trying to figure out, did I want to do ice skating or dancing? And I just kind of progressed more into dancing.
You know, my 4-year-old does ice skating lessons, and her dad takes her.
Yeah.
So like, that's so cute to hear that.
I love hearing that.
It says that you're more likely to face abuse and neglect without a dad. You're more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, and you're 2 times more likely to be obese
I wonder why that is. I wonder if it's just like overeating to cope, maybe.
How crazy. The National Fatherhood Initiative is what it's called.
That's what it is.
That's what
I
it
remember,
is. So
yeah.
they're like doing this big campaign because they said that almost every single problem in America, I mean, from crime to drugs to everything, has at least one factor, including a dad not being there.
Wow. So it's like we're trying to figure out all the ways, and I'm not saying that this is the only cure, but it's like we're trying to solve an opioid epidemic. We're trying to solve, a gun issue. We're trying to solve all these different epidemics, and you can start by just not screwing your kids up as a parent and as a dad.
By just being there. And that's the thing. So that means moms, you can do something. You know what you can do? Raise your sons to not check out when they become dads.
Yeah.
And that's the thing when we say like, oh, systemic and all these weird words. That's what we mean. Like moms and dads can raise their kids, boys and girls, to just show up in their kids' lives.
And I feel like that it's one of those situations where you either, when you're talking about being systemic, you either continue doing the same things that your parents did, or you realize that you want to do the exact opposite.
Yep.
So like, for Mike, for instance, you want him to do the exact opposite thing that your dad did. Or, like Brandon looks at my dad and he's like, oh, okay, that worked for us. And then you just, and I think that's the same thing, when it comes to everything, when it comes to drugs and drinking,
right.
and, just all of the
Of
things that
course.
you deal with growing up, you're like, whatever issues my parents had, I want to do the exact opposite.
And this is the thing. Everyone has issues.
Of course.
No one is like without issue.
Yeah.
And no parent is perfect. You can have the mom and dad in the home. They never got divorced and they are screwing their kids up royally because they're staying together when they shouldn't be.
Exactly.
Like that's the other thing. I didn't want my mom to stay with my dad. He's literally the worst person on the planet. I'm so glad they got divorced. That's like the best thing. The best gift she ever gave to me was divorcing that man and not screwing us up worse.
Right,
By
because
having him around.
There's worse things than being divorced. There's
Right.
a lot worse issues that
Exactly.
can come from that.
But the issue is not that. It's not getting divorced. The issue is just checking back in with your kids and letting them know, hey, we didn't work out, but I'm not divorcing you.
Right. I still care about you. I still care about your schoolwork, your friends, your social life, your activities. Like,
You know what else happens? At least for me, and I think I've heard this from a bunch of other people who come from divorced homes. A lot of times it screws up the kids if they see the walkout.
really?
Yeah. So like, and I had like a couple friends in school who had seen their walkouts. That's what we called them. I don't know what they're officially called, but you see the man leaving,
Okay.
the dad
Like
leaving,
physically
the last day they ever were there.
Wow.
And it's like scarred in my brain. I'm telling you, I'll never forget it. And I had pretty much erased a lot of my childhood just so that I didn't remember painful memories.
Yeah.
This particular thing I can't erase. So he was like, they were in a huge fight. He, finally was, that's it. He's out. And he went and opened his suitcase to leave. And I got in it. And they're like,
God.
take me with you. And like, trying to be packed into his
Yeah.
suitcase. I mean, talk about traumatic.
No kidding. I like tear up just hearing that.
I mean, it was just like, I could have done without that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe you do it nice and calmly. You
Right.
sit the kids down together, united front.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we need to talk to you guys. Listen, we still respect each other very much. We still love you guys, but we're just not working out. Like, why can't people do that?
I know, but I think it's a lot of things. I think it's selfishness. I think it's a lack of maturity. I think it's a lack of example that they had set for them. And again,
True.
you're either going to do the same thing that you saw. Maybe that's normal to them. They think that dysfunction and chaos that's their normal. And so they don't see why they have to change that or, why they should change it.
Yeah. It's just, I don't think parents understand how much kids pick up.
Absolutely.
And it's the saddest thing to watch now as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see parents, doing things that I remember as a kid I would notice. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'll see these like parents just thinking that kids are oblivious, and I will get affected because I'll be like, okay, that kid right there is absorbing everything that they're saying and doing.
Mm-hmm.
And even though to us as adults, it seems so benign.
Yeah.
But it's not.
So what are the things that are there things I should say that you're actively doing, like with Nash and Nora, for instance, that you have picked up like from childhood that either you do want to do the same or you want to do differently?
I refuse to fight in front of the kids.
Okay.
I refuse. In fact, Mike